Well, Michael's doing that today because it's now fall and almost winter and the weather's changing. Basically, they're fixing the air conditioning. So whoever's in charge of keeping the door upstairs unlocked, at today's meeting, they've asked it to be unlocked. So I'm not sure who that is. I thought it was Don, but he looks like he's leaving, so.
No, he's
Oh, you're
not
not.
care of it.
Leave it unlocked, so thank you.
Yeah.
So today's program is Suzanne Smith, who's the Executive Director of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the Regional Climate Protection Authority. Suzanne joined the Sonoma County Transit Authority in October of 1997, I guess when you were a freshman in high school, as the Executive Director. The SCTA is a countywide transportation agency responsible for coordinating state, federal, and federal funding and administering Measure M, the local quarter-cent transportation sales tax. In 2010, the SCTA took on a new role as Sonoma County Regional Climate Protection Authority, and Suzanne serves as the Executive Director of that agency as well. The focus of the RCPA is to coordinate local activities, secure grants, and strategically plan local efforts to reduce GHG emissions from all sectors. Suzanne? She feels better with the handheld mic.
Good morning. Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm assuming this is my clicker and I just advance. No? Okay. All right. Did you get through soon? Appreciate the introduction. I am the Executive Director of the SCTA and RCTA. We like acronyms in government, that's what we do. But we're a local government agency that's been around since 1990, and it's really focused on regional planning. And when I say regional, I'm talking countywide. So I report to a board of directors made up of 12 elected officials. I have a city council member from each of the 9 cities in Sonoma County, and then 3 members of the county board of supervisors. And in fact, this year and last year, Sarah Burney from your council here in Sebastopol has been the chair of my board. We are primarily on the transportation side and on the climate side, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on the transportation side. We are primarily a long-range planning organization and a funding organization. So our focus is what are all of the cities doing related to transportation, what are their priorities, and when I say transportation, I'm talking about roads, highways, buses, rail, and bikes, and pedestrians, so kind of all modes. What are the priorities of our local jurisdictions, and how do we get those together into a long-range plan? And then, once we have that plan, how do we get money to deliver on some of those projects? As part of that, in 2004, the voters of Sonoma County approved a sales tax measure, Measure M. It's a quarter-cent sales tax, and it generates $20 to $21 million a year now. That is dedicated to transportation purposes, and it's very explicit on how we can spend those funds. When the voters approved it, we gave them an expenditure plan. It laid out how we would expend the funds over a 20-year period, and we've been delivering on that now for 10 years. Driving in here today into Sebastopol, the project that kind of leaps out that we funded with Measure M and some other funds, it's called Street Smart Sebastopol, so it's all of the pedestrian safety measures that you see on a lot of your streets here in Sebastopol, the green pavement, the bulb outs, and the flashing beacons. That was a project listed in our sales tax measure and funded through Measure M. A number of other projects throughout the county that I'd be happy to talk about later if there's time. One of the other roles we play is as liaison to Caltrans. You know, Caltrans is this behemoth statewide organization, 20,000 employees, broken into districts. We're in District 4, covering the Bay Area, so they have 9 counties that they're responsible for in District 4. Within that district, there are 100 cities. So they have a hard time if it's going to be direct, one-offs to all of those cities. So agencies like mine there are 9 of them in the Bay Area. We serve as the primary liaison with Caltrans. So as an example, we've been managing the Highway 101 projects and working with Caltrans to secure the funding. We provide some of the funding and we help secure the funding, and then we work with them on, we've designed some of the projects with their oversight. They've done some of the work under contract to us, using local money. So it's a true partnership there. It's not just the state's problem and it's not just our problem or solution. The other kind of key project we're working on in this part of the county is the Laguna Bridge. We're not funding that project. It's called a SHOP job, which means a state highway operations and protection program job, meaning there was a problem with the bridge and Caltrans is having to fix it. But we do attend the construction meetings. We attended the meetings leading up to the development of the project to bring a local perspective and bring that information back to our local jurisdictions and our local elected officials so that the community can be more aware of what's happening out there. They are making good progress on that bridge. They will likely be shifting traffic soon, so you'll be driving on part of the new structure before the end of the year, and then they'll demolish the rest of the structure. And that's one of the challenges we deal with in the projects we do, especially bridges. We saw it a lot on Highway 101. You're seeing it down in Petaluma on Highway 101, but you're seeing it here probably every day when you're out there on Highway 12. And that is, how do you maintain and keep something open and let people continue to drive on it while you're rebuilding it in place. It makes our jobs more expensive and more challenging, but it's really crucial, I think, to maintain that flow of traffic and maintain the viability of your infrastructure. So that's the challenge we live with. As I mentioned, we do work with all those, so we're not responsible for the Smart Rail project, but we do help provide funding to them, so we engage with them fairly regularly. We also work with the local transit operators. In the case of West County, Sonoma County Transit provides your bus service, and we, again, help fund them. And we're also working with the bus operators and SMART to ensure there's good connections there when SMART is start service later next year. And then also bike and pedestrian projects and improving the bike and pedestrian connections and safety aspects. Working with our local public works departments and regional parks department on a bike path and bike trail network. And what's interesting so I have been doing this job 18 years now as of October 1st. And what's been interesting, I will say, is how things have kind of evolved over, especially the last 10 years, and the growing role that an agency like mine and our local jurisdictions have been dealing with these issues for forever. But what's interesting is how transportation, jobs, housing, and climate issues are all really merging together, and at a state level, regional level, you hear about silos in government, and there's the education silo, and they don't talk to the transportation silo, and within the transportation silo of stuff, the bike people don't talk to the road people, or don't talk to the bus people. And I think that's really changed over the last few years to the point where, frankly, sometimes it feels like transportation side of things is now bearing the burden of economic vitality, housing, land use, and climate. But I think for good reason. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit about today is economic vitality, the role of transportation and local government, and what we're doing. And then happy to open it up to questions either about that, or if you have something that's not specific to what I'm presenting, I'm happy to try and answer that as well. But why we live and work where we do is, I think there are three key factors there. There's the affordability factor, the accessibility factor, and then the quality of life. So, A, can you afford it? And in Sonoma County, that's a growing challenge for a lot of people. Is it accessible to what you want to be accessible to? Is it accessible to your job, your family, the school you want your children to go to? And then the quality of life. Does it provide, and that can link to accessibility too, because if you're on the road for 2 hours a day each direction to get to your job, accessibility is impacted, lack of accessibility is impacting your quality of life, then you have access to the recreational opportunities you want, or the entertainment and opportunities you want. So those are the three key factors, I think, in why we live and work where we do. And so those boil down to some of the things I've just touched on. What are the land use plans, and do they address what we need? What does the transportation system look like? And does it get you and your employees or to and from where they want to go? Is the school system attractive enough so that families want to live here? And then what recreational opportunities do we provide, and how do we protect those resources as well? And local government really plays a role in these four levels. There are federal policies, there are state policies, there are there is funding that comes from the state and federal level on these, but in most ways, these are local government decisions. So the decisions are getting made where you live, and that's, I think, the value of local government. I admit, I worked at the federal level for a short period of time, I worked at the state level for 5 years. Local government is the linchpin in delivering a quality of life and providing the accessibility and the affordability and addressing those issues, I think, that are most meaningful to where you live and how you're able to live. And it's those choices that local electeds make, I think, that really impact our daily life. So when local government looks at land use decisions and tries to address what the community is going to look like, there's a real focus on providing options. It is not a one-size-fits-all sort of scenario, and so we're looking at high-density housing in some urban areas, single-family homes on larger lots. What are the commercial districts going to look like? Can they be near residential uses so you can limit the number of trips you have to make by car? Where should the industrial areas be so that you have good access for the movement of goods and product? And then local government also plays a role in expanding and maintaining the transportation options. While there's never enough for us to do what we'd like to do, I mean, believe me, I have no shortage of a list of transportation projects we'd like to accomplish, but how do we prioritize those? And what is your priority, and how do you communicate that to your local elected officials? By creating a good mix of affordability and housing type and transportation opportunities, the long-range plans that we do are setting the groundwork for jobs and economic vitality. And general plans are typically the vehicle that is used to lay out where we see our individual communities. And the job of an agency like the SCTA is to try and take what's in those general plans and pull them together and hope that there aren't significant conflicts between the two. And at this point in our community, there really aren't. But just to make sure that that roadmap is in place regionally so that the whole system works. And in the manner in which we do that right now on the transportation side is something called a comprehensive transportation plan. Sounds like a lot of planning and jargon, and I appreciate your indulgence if you're not engaged in the government side of things, but it is the process that we use to bring about public engagement and try and plan for 20 years out, which is challenging, trying to figure out what technologies will be, what the market will want in that period of time. So our long-range plan is actually in the process of being updated right now. We update it every 4 years, working with your planning directors in various different cities and public works folks and local elections. So the accessibility issue, I think, is what I want to touch on for a second. As decision makers examine land use and housing and transportation network, there's really this economic lens through which they must look. And what do employers seek in locating or growing in a community? Is there foot traffic? Can the employees get to work reliably? Reliability is a huge component. Can you get the products you need in your business to make your business function in a reliable manner? Can you get your products out to market? And is the workforce educated to meet your company's needs? Do you have the opportunity to hire from within Sonoma County based on the educational system here. And employees may have similar interests, like they want their commute to be reliable as well. And they also want options. And that's one of the things we're really focused on. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And you may not be able to ride your bike to work every day, but if you want to be able to ride it a couple times a week, that's what we're trying to accommodate. If you can't, we're building a train, it's not going to work for Sebastopol. We're not going to deliver your employees to Sebastopol on the train, but it relieves congestion in the 101 corridor, and that helps some of your employees who are coming up that corridor off 116. There's value in that as well. So looking at that network and providing the options for employees and employers. And then good planning around housing type and cost, plus job type and cost, and their availability is another key factor. Affordability in the housing market is a challenge. And as a transportation agency, when I got hired 18 years ago, transportation and land use, yes, there's a nexus, but we weren't responsible for thinking about the housing side so much. More and more, our focus includes both, and how land use really dictates the type of transportation system you need. So what are our challenges in all of this? The long-range planning is important, but it often falls short in taking into account emerging trends and technology. And this is one of my kind of pet peeves. So this is not an SETA board, you're not hearing the SETA board channel through me. This is me right now. But I am frustrated at the slow pace through which technology and government interact, and the manner in which we're able to embrace new approaches to things. And there's some reasons for it, and you don't want to spend a lot of prudence with taxpayer dollars is kind of a paramount. And I get that, and there's always risk with new technology and new approaches. But with an aging population in Sonoma County, frankly, we have aging decision makers who aren't as familiar with new technologies. And that's I think that can be to our disadvantage in some ways. And that's at the federal level on down. So it leaves us a little bit constrained from advancing and perhaps doing things more efficiently than we could. All right, so enough about my personal belief on the use of advancing technology. The other challenges we have are even bigger in a lot of respects, including climate change, and storm events and emergency situations, and how we ensure that reliability I talked about earlier is available in the face of growing challenges. And then there's money. Usually when I speak to a group, I find myself talking mostly about money, or the lack of. And people get tired of hearing me talk about that. So I'm trying not to focus so much on that, but it is a reality. Because how are we going to fund our needs? And then here's a list of our key priorities. We want to finish 101. We've got smart passenger rail. We want to grow the bike network, the bus system. Maintaining what we've got. We have the largest local road system in the Bay Area, in the unincorporated county, and not nearly the revenue to improve it or maintain it. So what do we? And along with that, we see a declining revenue source in the gas tax, because the good news is our fuel efficiency in vehicles is getting better and better. That's great. That we want to achieve greater efficiency. However, our tax structure is based on fuel sales. So you've got a declining, and the gas tax has not been raised since the 90s. So the buying power is already going down. Fuel efficiency's improving. So here's a chart that shows the vehicle miles traveled, the use of the system going up. That's the blue line. you see the gas consumption going down. That's the Prius, right? So that's the good news. The efficiency with the fuel efficiency standards going down. And then and then there's the baseline of gas consumption if things stay the same. Well, we don't want the Prius to go off a cliff. In fact, we want more electric vehicles, but because of that, without changing our revenue structure, we're going to see over $16 billion in projected loss in revenue over the next 15 years in the state of California. That's a huge hit to the transportation system. So it really speaks to needing to, look at new technologies and ways to address how users of the system and how we pay for the system. There's some of that happening right now with a group called, they're looking at a mileage-based user fee, meaning a tax associated with how much you drive. California is likely going to have a pilot project on that in 2018, maybe 2017, just to see. Oregon's already done a couple of studies on this, but there are ways in which you could accommodate different needs among different types of drivers, looking at a mileage-based fee as opposed to a gas tax.
What about toll roads?
Never just one. Thank you.
Combined with the carpool.
Right, tolling is another option that I think we're going to see more of in California, especially in the Bay Area. We see very little of it right now. There's some in the South Bay on 680, and then we have the toll bridges. But we are, I would say we're mixed in the North Bay on tolling. There's some discussion about it on Highway 101 in the future, but we don't quite have the mass to generate a significant amount of revenue from tolling. It's not insignificant, but it's not quite enough. But it is an option, definitely, that is on the table. So I'm going to close with, and then I'm happy to take more questions. There will be bumps in the road. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is the Petaluma Bridge when we were demoing it earlier, before we're building the new one. The connection between the economy and the transportation system is crucial. You can't have a good economy without a reliable transportation system. How it's managed and maintained makes a difference, and I'm pleased to be here today to kind of share that message with you and talk a little bit about what we do at the SCTA. I didn't touch so much on the climate side, but I'm happy to talk about those programs and projects that we're working on as well, if there's time to have questions. Yes?
Appreciate you coming. It's a tough job. I'm thinking of Highway 101, which is such a huge priority. Can you explain? I kind of understand it, but can you explain why we have this beautiful frontage road that looks like it's well funded, and we haven't finished the 3 lanes all the way?
I'm so glad you asked. I thought I'm coming to Sebastopol. I shouldn't focus on 101 because I do speak a lot about that, but I am happy to answer that question. So the Marin-Sonoma Narrows project is the last phase of work that we need to do on 101. And technically that project starts at the north end of Petaluma and goes all the way south to where it widens at Atherton. It's about a $750 million project. We have been gleaning money wherever we can for over a decade now. And to date have gathered about $500 million. So in that, over that period of time, we've worked very hard to try and identify fundable projects that have independent utility is the technical term, but that add value to the system, basically. And it's actually a requirement of under state and federal law that you have to have independent utility, but what projects can we do to advance the full corridor project in a meaningful way and as quickly as possible? So the theory behind it is to do the hardest parts first and the most and the most safety-oriented parts first. So if you think about that corridor, there's part of it on both the north and south end that are freeways already, but they need to be widened. And then there's that middle part that's 9 miles long that has direct access. There are driveways and the gas station and roads that came directly on 101. Huge safety problem. So we put together phasing plans that included closing as many of those direct access points as possible. And so what that meant was improving the interchanges first and building the frontage roads, because the frontage roads provide the access for those property owners. And also in doing that, we're moving all the utilities, we're buying all the right-of-way, we're dealing with all of the environmental mitigation. So getting all of that out of the way first. Then we also were able to secure funding to do the bridges over Petaluma River and 116. Huge, expensive projects. The bridge is $100 million. So the hard part of getting the bridges funded, so we're doing that. There was, in Marin County, because there are partners in this, and we have to share. I'm an only child, I don't often like to share, but we have to, like, we get the funding together, we have to figure out stuff. So they started widening, working to northward, doing some of their priority. We've been focused on the bridge and getting that project done. There's one more job that's going to be happening. Bids open later this month, but it's going to be realigning the portion across the county line and widening it. The problem is, as you point out, it's not an additional lane yet. Our next priority is a relatively small job. It's about $35 million, and if we can secure that funding, we will be able to open up the third lane from just south of the county line all the way through across 116, about 4.5 miles. It still leaves a gap on the north end and the south end that need improvement, but that's our key priority right now, is to find that chunk of money. We refunded we issued bonds on the 2008, in 2008 on our sales tax funds, and we just recently refunded them and brought forward $15 million. Now we're only 20 million short, and that's much of what I do is trying to find that 20 million. But that's the rationale. Safety and hard part first.
A little bit, so that would be great. And I have a job for you. And actually, well, first, I present you with a token of our appreciation for your coming to speak. And we have a board prize. So we need you to draw a ticket.
Before you used to go back and forth
Yeah, okay.
into the people's zone.
You get to draw the ticket. Now, what are the last four numbers?
6942.
Try again. Try again.
Well, let's try it out.
6944.
Third time's a charm. We'll see.
6949.
Donate it back to the transportation cause, Brian.
Thank you. All right. Cards out. Let's get that done. Looking for an ace. Got a 20% chance.
Just right here.
No. Well, you have this wonderful luck.
That's nice.
Lake Penultimate,
Q-U-N-A-U-L-T.
Quinault.
No?
Yeah, in Washington.
Bill Hubbard. We have a joke? Yes, okay.
What was that joke you told the other night, Jim?
Somebody has
I need help, I don't have a joke. All right, okay, this is really bad, but I'll do it. It's the one joke I can remember. What do you do when you get your toes stuck in the mud? You call a tow truck. Right, roll it.
All right, well, it is time. Ride that building.
Till we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you till we meet again.